And welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy Tag TV podcast. I am your host, JD, and joining me, of course, is George.
How are you, JD?
Oh, excellent. You're on delay there. And Anna again.
Oh, my God.
We've got
back in Adelaide. Come on.
Yeah. I didn't know it was like the half-hour time zone difference. What have we got going on? So pretty packed agenda today. We're going to go through when are we doing upgrades? Is it next week is kind of traditional, or is it going to be later on in the year? The latest on Cripps and Hinge, upgrade targets, both now and kind of in the next few weeks, as well as then rookies and the usual stuff when it comes to vice captain. But before we get into all of that, George, maybe a highlight from the weekend and your rank and score.
Just quickly, this week, did you guys see the F1 on the weekend?
We're going to get to that in a second. But yeah.
No.
Oh,
Not
no.
that
Not
that F1. The Supercoach F1. Isaac Heaney, JD.
Oh, he's playing that.
I don't watch motorsport. Come on, you know that.
I've fallen into the trap. Hook, line, and sinker. Oh, jeez.
Pretend we didn't see him post that 2 days ago.
Yeah. I actually had forgotten because it was bad when I read it the first time. All right, yes. Did I watch Heaney this weekend? Who did
I actually
they
didn't.
play?
So I wish I did.
Missed out.
I watched the
2
wrong
winning
F1.
goals. Yeah. Anyway, so how did I go this week?
I did watch that actually. Yeah, I got really triggered because he was gonna finish on like 80, and then got some luxury scaling in the end there. Yeah, I don't know how he got scaled so much for a junk time goal, but I guess he knows take what they get, and they got given 50 points for free this week. So sorry, George. Back to news that'll make me happy. What was your score and rank this week?
Oh, if it makes you happy, well, I am ranked 34k, so I went down from 32k, and I scored 2,179. So I thought I was having a good week up until cop the double Hinge and Cripps on Sunday. I think a lot of people in the same boat though. And my trades for this week were, I did save one trade, so I'm pretty proud of myself. But I did
Two, technically.
Showed some restraint this week.
You could have.
I did yeah, that's true. I went Stevens to Bruce. I would have loved to know if Hayes was sub or not, so I didn't really want to risk that because I already had Dixon as the E. So I was like, do I risk Hayes sub? Not really. I don't really want my weekend ruined like that. So I brought in Bruce. He got suspended, but fortunately, I don't want to say fortunately, but it looks like Dixon and Hayes are a good chance to play this week. So a little bit lucky, but oh boy, owning Bruce he's good, but he's, oh my goodness, something always goes wrong every game with him. So,
and speaking of rucks that always go wrong, Enno, you must have had a massive week. Firstly, the F1, we got to hear a story or two from that, and then secondly, the big green man himself was returning to your lineup this week. How did he go?
The F1 going to that was a blessing. Means I watched about 2 or 3 games this weekend and didn't get to see my team capitulate. Although I did see Stuart with the gastro on Friday, and I guess that just pretty much kicked it off. So I was glad that I didn't have to watch too much footy on the weekend. Yeah, the big Shrek, mate, he got dominated by the Bruce. He actually got not towed up. Like, it was a good contest, but he did really well. So getting the old 70 average from a 600k player playing 2 games out of 4. Yeah, I think you can guess that my rank's not that good. So it was all right. It was like 12k, but dropped so much down to 28k with a 2060. And I'm back making my way down to the bottom of us 3, where I was all last year. So
come hang with
maybe
me
I can stay ahead of George. But
no. I mean, with Stuart out and Darcy obviously looking a little bit undercooked coming back, some few mitigating factors there that might correct.
Look, themselves. I don't have Cripps. If you're looking for a positive, I don't have Cripps. So yep, that is definitely a positive. It's actually good that we've got a non-Cripps owner here because it's maybe someone a little bit more objective to help go through the trade situations and what we should be thinking about. And then finally, I had a better week than you two. So 2277 up to I think top 8k now, which still not a great rank by our standards, but moving up slowly and steadily. So let's quickly. I asked you before or around round 1, who would be the best performer of the Holy Trinity? What would Wits have been paying?
Oh yeah, I don't know. You couldn't have got me to pick Wits. You couldn't have got me to pick Wits. I think Took Miller would have been number 1 for sure. But yeah,
Witsy is the leader.
He is 113.8 average. Oh wait, no, he's not. No. Took still 114.5 average. All right, he's
But as far as picks, yeah.
Oh yeah, in terms of picks, I mean, he's returned. How much has he made so far? 70K or something. Not too bad. And he's got to be up there with the top rucks.
He gets to play the very tough Jack Hayes in the ruck this week, most likely. Giving up 20 centimeters, but I think chuck the C on him.
17 hit outs to advantage.
Is he playing St Kilda? Oh.
Yeah.
Witsy, let's go.
All right, enough. Next.
All right. I mean, you're talking about the F1. Let me talk about the R1. All right. So first topic this week, we're going to talk with trades in and out. And I guess the big news coming out of the week was 2 injuries. So the first being to Cripps, who did some type of hamstring, and Eno might hit us with an update on that. And then Mitch Hinge as well, who got subbed off in the third quarter with some type of hip problem. Eno, you're going to be our doctor for this week. Have you got some updates from the Twitter rumor sphere?
Oh, yeah. So we've got the old up the baggers. So
I
reckon this is the club doctor anyway. But yeah, Patrick Cripps scans revealed that he's escaped any serious damage to his hamstring and is most likely to play this week. I mean, there you go. You've heard it from the best source possible. No, I mean, look, we take this with a grain of salt. Yes, it was a very minor hamstring. Like, he was only bending down to pick the ball up and felt something and literally, like, he jogged off. So it's probably just being pretty conservative with him. If it's a 1 to 2 weeker, you probably would look to hold, because like their draws, as you were saying last week, looks really good. I know they lost on the weekend, but Cripps has been a big part of their first 3 wins, probably best on ground in all of them. So if it's like a 1 to 2 weeker, JD, is that a hold for you?
Yeah, I think I was going to draw the line at 1 week. So 1 week or less I hold, 2 or more I trade. So I think this news is pretty positive for Cripps owners, because it looks like we may be able to just hold on to him. I think there's probably still a risk that he gets sat out this game and doesn't get up and they go precautionary. But then it looks like if he's potentially back this week, then it would mean that he hasn't torn the hamstring. It's just an awareness and a precautionary thing.
Yeah.
Which I think means, you'd hold him. George, is that what you're thinking? I know your trade fingers have been getting pretty itchy. So how are you thinking about this?
Well, what are boosts for? Times like this, 1 week injuries. Nah. Yeah, it's pretty hard. That bloody boost button. Oh, I like that boost button.
Nice and green.
I think traditionally, 1 is a hold, 2 is a hold, 3 is a borderline. Even 3 weeks you can hold, but I guess we're early in the season, so it's not like it's delaying our upgrades. So there's points up for grabs by getting someone else, such as, I don't know, Tim English on the rise or something like that, side swapping. But I will probably need to hold him. I think it's a bit annoying because now we have to carry this durability risk that we didn't, we just looked at his upside and said, I think he's too hard to pass up. Except for Eno, smartly passed on Cripps. But yeah, I think it's a hold, it sounds like. We'll get more info from the club. So 1 is a hold. I think even 2 I might hold. 3 I'll trade.
So it sounds pretty good. And then the other option that people were looking to trade out this week just because of injury was Mitch Hinge. Has there been any update on that one, Eno?
Yeah, well, you had the tweet before. I think it was just a hit pointer. So a little bit of a knock. And then, like, I don't understand the AFL rules too well. Like, it's probably not that bad. They just wanted to sub him off to get some fresh legs on the field. But that post-game report, I believe, said he's pretty much a chance to play this week. So, I mean, even if he's out for a week, say for instance, and he's not playing, I'm a big advocate of holding him. He just dropped an 80 and then a 90 before this 30. So he's a very viable field option for us. Yes, the 30 hurts. It's probably going to hold him back on cash gen for a bit, but if he comes back and then pumps out some more 80s and 90s, I think he's got at least another 100K or so in him. So for me, that's a hold anyway. What do you reckon, George?
Yeah, for sure, hold. It doesn't sound too serious. Playing halfback with kick-ins, and halfback is his preferred role. He was playing a bit of wing more early in the season, but more halfback now. So no reason to trade, just hold him. He's a good rook.
So I found the exact quote here. Mitch was subbed out of the game at 3/4 time after suffering a corked hip, which was causing him discomfort and impacting his ability to perform. We'll assess him in the coming days regarding his availability for our next game. That to me sounds pretty promising. He could play this week, but at most this would be a 1-week injury, which I think to your point makes him a hold. Looking at some of the other underperforming rookies that we have, especially in our midfield, I think I'd rather get rid of them and wait one game for Hinge to come back than trade out Hinge this week. And I'm seeing a lot of nodding, which is a good sign. So
yeah,
I know in my video this week I went straight into, let's play around with trading out both Hinge and Cripps. But as the week progresses, it's looking more and more likely that holding both is going to be the correct play this week.
And just quickly, I think he was due for mid status like 3 weeks, but after the last couple of weeks, he's been full-time defense. So I don't think he'll get it, which is a little bit annoying, but the role behind the ball is what we want really anyway. But yeah, would have been handy with getting the mid status for a bit of DPP, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Okay, so then there are a couple of other players that people are thinking about trading out or trading in across each of the lines, and we might go through those now and kind of weigh in on, are they players that you trade out or hold, and then maybe some of the potential replacements, either for this week or for in coming weeks. So as always, we'll start down back with the defenders. I think there's 2 underperforming premiums. I put in quotation marks. Ridley and Whitfield, they've kind of been the topic of discussion the last few weeks. George, firstly, let's cut the cards on the table. Does anyone own Ridley and or Whitfield?
Neither.
Nope.
Okay, so I started both and I've just got Whitfield left. But George, let's start with you. If you were sitting looking at a depressing backline with Ridley and Whitfield, who would you trade out if you were going to trade out one? And if you were going to trade out one, how do you kind of think through that?
Interesting. I don't think either are top in their position. Ridley's a weird one. They share the kick-ins a lot, and he still needs he had 1 or 2 really big intercept marks and still didn't score super well. I am not sure. I still worry about Whitfield. I think.
Sorry, one sec. Before you just go on that, were you watching this game, George? Essendon versus Adelaide? The one where Essendon just beat Adelaide by a goal or 2 at the end in the close game?
Yes, I was watching.
Oh, sorry. Oh, yeah, of course you were. Sorry. So, so just you should remember then a couple of notes from this game. So, Ridley missed, I think, 5 or 10 minutes at the end after a knock, right? So
that's right. Yes, a concussion.
Yeah, so I think he got pulled off for protocols. He is fine and all good to go, is the reports, but that probably didn't help him just because he missed out on some of the potential scoring as the ball was coming into Essendon's backline pretty fast at the end. Which I think the score is slightly lower than what it could have been. It was interesting because at halftime he was on 20. And then he recovered to a 74 with potentially more coming. He could have got to a mid-80s and that would have been a somewhat respectable score. So a little bit unfortunate, but I think your points are still valid, which is he's sharing more kick-ins than what we saw at the end of last year. He's still taken by far the most for Essendon, but they are getting shared around a bit. And for me, the big observation I've made is that Essendon just isn't playing chip kick to kick in their backline like some of their other teams do. So he's just not getting free possessions, either from kick-ins or from the game plan. And that makes it really hard for him to stay consistent and consistently score well just off intercept possessions.
Well, I think at this point, you just hold both now. I don't think there's any point in trading after they've dropped in price. Really still averaging 90-odd. Whitfield had a really good last quarter. Before that, it was looking a little concerning, but at the point, they've both dropped a bit in cash. Just hold both.
Edo, anything else to add on that? Any observations on with? Although, it's the one game you did watch, right? You got to watch Darcy.
Yeah, I got to watch that shit show. But Whitfield, man, he had 3 or 4 knocks. I don't know. I was with a couple of mates and they still own him, and I was just I'm so happy I got out of this pick and swapped him to Heaney in round 2. But yeah, he put on a big second half, so he's bought another. He's bought some time in your team. As George said, I just don't think there's any point in training these guys now. The only reason would be for whatever reason you don't have George Hewitt or Jaden Short. If that's the case, then make that trade right away. But I think most people would by now.
Yeah, so good transition there into some of the potential targets for defender upgrades. So I think, if you are looking to secure up your defense and get someone in either through Cripps, if he's out for longer than what we thought, you have the luxury of sidewaysing one of the two we've already mentioned, or you're just looking at upgrading that position over the next couple of weeks. Who have you got your eyes on in terms of good upgrade targets, and how are you prioritizing scoring potential versus value?
So down back, this is tough. So I was looking at someone to get rid of Cripps too, and I'm still a little bit undecided. Now, obviously, Cripps, it's come out that we'll see how it goes, but right now as it stands, I'm not going to trade him for now. But, in terms of upgrade targets, James Sicily is balling right now. And I know, JD, you're not a fan of Sicily. Why not?
This has got George's bad trade written on it.
How? He's playing good. Okay,
he's not a top 6 defender.
He's
not even a top
470k,
8
and
defender.
He's like 2 or 3 points off top 6 right now. He's
I don't
470k.
I don't think this pick's going to work.
Forward for like 5 minutes in one game, and that was pretty much it. He's getting a good share of kick-ins. He's scoring well with everybody in the team, although they keep getting injured around him. But look, for 470k, if I'm looking for someone at that price, I want to save money, I would take Sicily. So now, if you have a bit more money, okay, do you want to go on elaborate?
Right. So they've played so far North, Port, Carlton, St Kilda, and he's squeaked out a low 100 score. They're about to go into Geelong, Sydney, and Melbourne. They're going to get thumped those 3 games. They're not going to be competitive. Do you think he's going to score well in those games?
I don't think. No, they've played well this year. They had played bad against.
They just got destroyed by Saints, like reamed. And then the other teams they've faced are North and Port aren't good. North and Port aren't good. And then Carlton, they had a good showing against.
More kick-ins and more supply for Sicily.
He's sharing kick-ins. It's not like
he's playing on like the third tall or whoever rotates back there. Sometimes he plays tall, sometimes he plays small. Sometimes hit the panic button and send him on the key defender. But regardless, he still hunts the foot. Like he still demands the footy down back. I think he's fine for 470k. Look, is he top 6? Probably not. Is he close? Yes, he is. And for the price, I think it's fine. Because when you're going up in price, who are you going to? Well, firstly, is anything else you want to say on Sicily, or can we move on?
No. Well, I guess I just have an NO tiebreaker on where you sit on the pick.
I lean more towards no than yes. Like JD sort of said, if I'm trading someone in, I want the scope or at least the belief that they will be close to top in their line, and I don't see that with him.
You don't think he'll be close?
What's close, like 6 to 10? Like, what are you saying, 8 to 10? Yeah,
close to 105 average.
No, I think he's close to like 100. And he could even be 95. He's so. My question or my point is more. Most of us probably have 4 defenders. Then we have Dacos coming next week. Then we have Hinge still as a very fieldable option. I don't want to force in another defender when that line can be set for a while and make upgrades elsewhere. That's more my point, but that's another story. But
so just to bolster that, and I think it's an important one, is that there's 3 defenders that are all less than 10% owned that are like scoring pretty well in Doherty, Sinclair and Hall, right? So if I've got 2 defender spots left and I've already got, underperformers like Crisp, Whitfield, I don't want to put in another underperformer. I want to make sure I'm only getting the best the last 2 spots. And that's why I think the Sicily pick just feels really bad to me, because I know I'm going to be locked out of players that are going to potentially be scoring 10 to 20 points more a week than him.
Yes, but Doherty has durability issues. Sinclair did a hamstring late last year, and Hall did a hamstring a few weeks ago.
And Sicily coming off
18 months. 18 months. So
mate, hamstrings from 2014 scare you, but an ACL from 2 years ago doesn't.
Well, no. Anyway.
I think if you started Sicily, well done. There's been a good value pick so far through a month. I don't think he's a guy I want to bring in now.
Okay, very well. I just realized he destroys my buy round, so I actually can't get him. I do like him. Because just quickly on Sicily, I have Crispin Hall. You look at the midfield, Brayshaw, Petrarca, Oliver, already have Neil. Like, I want to get most of these guys in my team. So it just makes life very difficult. Plus Grundy, if you have Gorn, Brody,
it's at the buy round, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's the
he's
last
got the
buy round.
last buy round.
It's very bad.
So to be honest, it's not the worst buy round to load up on. And I guess like the positive for Sicily is that you could potentially sideways him at that buy round with a boost or whatever, and get in a guy that's scoring more.
Yeah, I don't want to be using trades on that. Although I've wasted enough.
You can't say that.
Well, no,
like to buy flip.
I think that's fair. But if you, there are definitely some teams that are running around that have only used 1 or 2 trades so far, and so I think that's like a realistic option for them.
Yeah, fair enough. That's good. For me, like I feel like Dacos is going to be flipped in that round 14 buy most likely, and then see how we go.
Fair enough.
But yeah, that goes back to my thing with 4 primos and those 2 guys that are fieldable. I think we leave this line for a bit. But
all right, then let's transition into some of the other targets down defense that maybe aren't as value oriented, but are looking in those top spots. So you've kind of mentioned Shorty and Hewitt as 2 ones that you kind of must have. Who are the others that you want to put beside them if you're looking at upgrade targets in defense?
Jake Lloyd's going to be 500k in 2 or 3 weeks. Not sure he's top 6 though, but he is a better buy than Sicily, and he clearly has a scope to be 105. I think on the weekend, apparently he had a kid, I think, which probably didn't help his sleep. And North kicked 3 behinds, so doesn't really help when that happens. So I don't mind him. Who are you thinking, Anno?
Well, probably the guy I have, which is Stewart, who I think he's meant to play this week, and he would have dropped another 20k or so with another ton. So he's getting affordable. And then I think the last guy would be Aaron Hall. He's getting really cheap now after a 70 and a 95 or whatever. So he'll be low 500s as well. It's just, do you want to get onto another North player? They looked improved this week, but still got the injury concerns with him and that sort of thing. So they're the guys that I'll be looking at.
I think we need to speak about Sinclair and Doherty. So they're currently top 6.
I think Doherty's number 1, isn't he, for defense?
Yeah.
And he's barely getting kick-ins as well, which is weird. So, yeah, they play pretty friendly style. Williams is averaging 95, Sard's averaging 100 plus, Doherty 125. I don't know. I already paid 570 for Hall. I'm not sure I can afford to pay 570 for Doherty at this stage. Plus, he's 2 ACLs. God forbid cancer recurrence. Had a good preseason, it sounds like. Not a full one, but slowly built into training earlier in the year. He had calf issues a while back, I think in the COVID year. So I feel like he's a bit too much risk associated with him, but without a doubt, he looks like he's D1 at the moment. What do you reckon, JD? Are you looking at Doherty later down the line?
Yeah, for me, I just think the hard thing is exactly what you pointed out, which is he's already top price now. So, well, like he'll obviously keep going up with the scores that he's put up, but I just I can't, it's really hard to justify paying 600k for a defender. We haven't seen someone average 125 ever or in a long time. I mean, Hall kind of at his peak got close to it last year. So it just doesn't
COVID year.
Yeah, so it just doesn't really seem like it's sustainable. And that's what worries me. I know Hall has got similar scoring potential, but is going to be 70, 80k cheaper. And they both have durability issues. So maybe if Hall starts to look all right, that's where I would probably prefer to go. But I do think you have to pay, more respect to Doherty than what we have so far.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I mean, I think the same can be said with Sinclair. He's a lot younger, but looking really good. Like he's
He's
awesome
27. I
the
think they're the
first
same. Doherty's 28.
Doherty only
27.
28.
Yeah, Sinclair's 27.
Okay, Sinclair is way older than he looks. But anyway,
Yes.
like same, yeah, respect for them, but I'm going to beat the dead horse again and say let's leave the line and just let it settle out again and see if these guys are actually primos in another few weeks. And yeah, like JD said, Doherty's top dollar. Sinclair, yeah, he's 530K, but somewhat unproven. So what's this? If he's 27, what's this? The 9th year breakout. I'll just wait and see on that one for me. So yeah, just want to leave the defense for now. We're going to get Dacos there next week. It's going to be nice and secure. Probably get O'Driscoll in, like we all will. Speak about that later, and then I'm worrying about other lines.
All right. So then I think most of us saying like if you've already got 4 premium defenders, you're probably not looking to upgrade there. But if you had to pick one or you only started 3 for whatever reason, who would you 1, 2, 3 be for upgrade priority?
Doherty. I'll say Lloyd at 500. And then the way Sinclair's going, I'd probably say him.
I think I'd go Hall number 1 because he's pretty cheap. We know what he can do. Yeah, there's concerns with him, of course. Maybe I guess Doherty number 2 just because he's looking really good, like his premium self from a few years ago. And I can't put my hat on Sinclair yet. So maybe I'd even say Sicily, just with the value that you get from him. I really don't like Lloyd, man. I don't know why. He just, unless he gets 10 kick-ins, he's not
I know what you mean.
That much ball anymore, you know? Like,
well, my thinking is I see durability issues everywhere.
Yeah.
And I see Lloyd and I say 500K and I say, I feel like I'm paying a fair price for, I'm going to get the total points.
I think, you know, like I'm not like, say I don't like Sicily. I think he's close to what Lloyd will average and he's cheaper. So I think I'd say Sicily.
I'd be getting, if Sicily had a better buy, I'd be grabbing him.
Yeah.
Well, so for me, yeah, assuming that Short and Hewitt had already been acquired, then I think I would go Hall probably next week as well because I think he'll lose some more money against the Dogs. Then I'd have Sinclair just because he's cheap, and then Doherty just because the full price. I'm a little bit worried about the regression potentially coming with him.
Fair enough.
All right. So next up on the run sheet, we've got Rucks, keeping things a little bit interesting, not going into the midfielders next. I can see 2 names here, which I think are the 2 that a lot of people want to talk about. So firstly, Gawn, well done to anyone that held him, a big 160 on the week, which is, reward for holders. But is this someone that is now gone from an option that we're looking to trading out to someone that we should be looking to trade in now?
Nah. Well, I posted this in the Discord and you guys sent copium stuff at me, but the way the game worked at this game was Port were chipping it around and letting Gawn get behind the ball. And they had, Lysette was injured, was working against Marshall. He could just take intercepts behind the ball, contested marks because they had no height. And then because they were moving it slow and kicking it high, they were forcing stoppages. So more, I think Gawn and Jackson went like 290 points combined. So with Gawn, the plan was, the thinking behind trading him was freeing up money for players like bloody Cripps and thinking that his ruck time is going to be up and down with Jackson depending on the matchup. So we figured I don't think he's worth the 650. Well, probably was, but I think I've committed to the plan, which was to get him back cheaper at some point, and hopefully that is the case. But he looked really good on the weekend, but it was literally the biggest dream matchup he could possibly imagine. So I'll think we'll still be able to get him in the 500s later on, and is what it is.
Yeah, I think speaking of dream matchups, they've got GWS this week without Bruce, right? So I think the worrying thing... So I think Gawn is still going to show fluctuations because of the Jackson factor. So we might get a couple of down games where we get him cheaper. The problem is it's just not going to come anytime soon with the 160 on the weekend and then, the Bruceless GWS team this weekend. I can kind of see him going pretty big again. And that worries me because it's like, if he's got 2 big scores and his price goes up and he's rolling average, when are we going to get him cheaper? To me, it doesn't feel like it's going to be potentially until the buys.
Well,
Depends who you have, right? If you have English, you can hold that posse down. You can leave it with Wits for now. You can even go Hayes and Dixon for a couple of weeks, it seems. Cherry we get next week. So you can still, I guess you can just, play it by ear and just let others hold it down until you hope it does happen. Not, we're only just hoping, aren't we, that another pretty low score comes so he can come down a bit more. But who knows? He might just hover around 600K the whole year.
And then the other ruck option that was mentioned a few times there is Bruce, the man of the hour, for all the right and wrong reasons. So back-to-back 100s from Bruce has looked very good while on field. But the problem is that 2 out of the 4 games of the season so far he's going to be suspended for after copping a 1 week for elbowing Monday. He's obviously not playing next week and therefore not a priority. But when he comes back the week after, is he someone that you have to trade into your sides?
I think he's one where his upside outweighs the risk, whether you have him at R2 or R3. Just needs to play a few games and he'll piss in 150K to make. So I would, I think it's worth the risk with him because he looked really good and can score really well. But again, it's like, it might be play 2 weeks, miss 1 for doing something stupid or needs a rest or whatever. But I think over time, just needs to play like 3 or 4 games and he'll make 150K plus with upside for more. And the option of fielding him if you're in that position. So I would say yes.
Yep.
Yeah, his break-even's -91, and with a projected score of 79, he'd make 75K on the first price rise. So seems like someone we're going to have to bookmark to bring in next week kind of no matter what, which is interesting because you obviously can't downgrade him and make a lot of money. So it's either one that people might have to consider going early on this week or planning to boost for next.
Yeah.
All right. So moving on to the mids then, targets to upgrade to. There's a lot, I guess, of names here, and people have been weighing through these with Cripps, potentially being one that they're looking to trade out, or maybe even someone like a Raul in coming weeks. Eno, who's caught your eye and who do you think people should be looking to upgrade to?
I'll go over people I actually watched this weekend. So, I mean, the 2 Demon boys are big ones. Both started very well, track a couple of big scores early, but now 2 sub-tons, I think it is, from track. And then Clary, very good until the 60 on the weekend, which not getting tagged was just a very down game from Clary, pretty uncharacteristic. I think he only had like 7 or 8 contested possessions. They totally dominated in the air and probably had control of that game where he wasn't totally required that much. But yeah, track did get the tag at 10 clangers or something. So both those boys will be coming down. They get GWS this week. Who gets tagged, I don't know. Obviously, they've had success, a lot of success with Clary tagging him in the past, but seems to be teams are switching over to track now after he's been named the #1 player in the game, Super Wog. So wait and see on both. It's a wait and see. Like if Clary drops another poor one, he could absolutely plummet to like low 500s, which is crazy to think. So it is, just a wait and see on those 2. That'd be my 2 looking to come in because I think their draw coming up is crazy good. Like it's a lot of, after Port, who we probably thought were going to be a hard matchup at the start of the year. But yeah, it just opens right up. So I'd be looking to get one, if not both, in the next month or so. So those 2 are way at the top of my list.
So their break-evens, I think, are 162 for Oliver and 168 for Petrarca. And with the tag that they're potentially facing this week, would you actually recommend anyone trade them in this week, or is they just kind of a watch list for the next couple of weeks?
What kind of stupid question is that? Don't bring him in this week.
No.
Look, I know the answer to the question, George. I mean, what do they say? Like, never ask a question you don't know the answer to. But some people might need to hear that maybe you should wait a week on these guys and just wait for the price to do. Okay, so we'll swap over to George then. There's a few other names that I've seen thrown about a fair bit. So let's break these down. So starting with Jack Steele, is this someone that you should be trading in this week?
Yeah, if you want. He's been good the past few weeks. I think, or the past 2 weeks. I think on the weekend disposal was a little bit off. So Can happen. I think his like dream team was like 130. So, sorry, fantasy was 130. So, he's one you could look at 630k. I think that's a pretty decent price. He's one that could get to 700. I'm still not sure he'll reach the heights of next year, of last year rather. So, I think it's one you can wait on if you wish. I honestly think you should wait. I would be waiting a week for Clary, or 2 weeks rather for Clary. Or if you don't have Tuke Miller, who has 188 break even, that is about as free as it gets. Yeah, don't have Tuke, he's your guy, I'm pretty sure. So for me, it's probably Clary first because of price. And then I already have Tuke, Steele. If at some point I'll try and get Steele before the buy, maybe after his buy. So yeah, it's getting to that point where I think it's round 12 this year. So I guess you have to wait till round 13. Buy. So yeah, perfect upgrade target after that. So maybe I'll wait for that. And hopefully he doesn't go to 700 like last year. So I just monitor his form.
One other thing to note is that after Gold Coast this week, they then play GWS the next week. And I can't see a tag target outside of Steele in that midfield. I guess maybe Gresham's been pretty damaging and pretty important for them. I guess like the other thing is Steele seems harder to tag than some of these others just because the other stuff that he does that isn't necessarily win the ball. But yeah, one to keep in mind for him. Brayshaw is one whose name has been popping up after having, what was it, like a 190 in round 2 this year and starting really strong. Is he someone that's in your considerations at the moment?
I love Bray. Had him last year after a couple of tags, but it just seems that he's just going to cop a lot of them this year. He seems an easy target. He's worked through them okay the last 2 weeks. You know, I mean, last week it was Jackson Nelson. That's not that's not the hardest bloke to get through, but Lockie Ash did a good job. Time. Yeah, exactly. The game was over, so that obviously helped. And then Lockie Ash, he worked through pretty well as well. But again, maybe the game was over and he sort of junked it a bit late. So they're going to come, which is just scares you off a little bit. But he's showing that he can start to work through them better than he did last year. So yeah, I like Bray. If he's at a really affordable price, you know, mid 500s at some point this year, I'll pick him up.
Okay, and then a couple of options that are already cheaper would be Callum Mills at roughly 580 and Darcy Parish around the same. Would you consider either of these as trade-in options if maybe someone's looking to move on Cripps but can't afford these bigger names that we've discussed?
George is shaking his head.
Not Callum. He had another Achilles issue, I think, on the weekend. Well, they were looking at it, some lower leg issue. Don't touch injured players. Parish, maybe. I don't trust Parish, unfortunately, just because he had that slight down form. And I don't know if he gets attention or not with Merritt out in the next, 6 weeks or so. I don't really want to sit through him. Look, he looks good. I think he'll be fine. But I think the other, a bit more dependable options elsewhere.
Agreed.
Okay, cool. And then one that people had a lot of success trading to last year was Bontempelli when Dunkley went down around the same time. So he's 614K. I was actually surprised to see that he's averaging 113.5 figure after 136 on the weekend. He's been sneaky good. I think he's turned up in every game so far with 105s, 108s. Not something I was expecting. Dogs Run is a bit of a joke coming up. North, Adelaide, Essendon the next 3, then Port, Collingwood, Gold Coast, West Coast. That's a pretty dream run up until the buys. Is Bontempelli potentially a winning play for a second year in a row?
It scares me. I think it could be. And after the pain of last year. Well, that's the thing. I was surprised too. Where he's scraped 3 tons the first 3 rounds and you've barely heard his name. I guess the Dogs have been a little bit underwhelming, but he just finds a way. Rarely puts in a stinker. If he's getting tagged, he'll go forward and, create contests, do some good things. So it's an affordable price because I think he spent half the year last year at 700. So yeah, he's probably up. If it had to be this week, Demons guys, you're not looking at. I think Bont's the one. If it had to be this week, what do you think, George?
Nah, not for now. I think I'll wait for the Demon boys.
All right.
I just feel like the role might not be perfect all the time. I think it's good, but they're Baz is scoring insanely well. Trelaw's been okay. Dunk's scoring well. McRae is just a pig in there. So I don't know. Like I think he can definitely go like 120, but I think he won't go too out of control with the full Bulldogs squad all playing together. So one to look at after.
Yeah, you stole my transition there into the one potential value option in the midfield that we could talk about, and it's one of your dog boys again, George, in Baslenka Bailey Smith. So 500k, which is actually means you make money trading Cripps to him if you were to go down that path. Averaging more than Bont, 113.7 through the first 3 games. And the big difference between last year and this year is that he's getting a lot of CBAs now. In fact, seems to have worked his way into their preferred rotation, with him getting 64% of CBAs last week. Is this a pick that you could get interested in, given the price and the fixture for the Dogs?
Yeah, it's interesting. He's playing really well. I think his run and carry is pretty sick to watch. I just don't know if he holds the role or not. Like, what they could easily just play him half forward for a few weeks out of necessity. I don't know. I think he'll hold his role, but I'm not sure. So, pass for now.
You know, any nibbles?
I was going to save the Baz talk for at the end, because he's sitting at, thanks to we'll mention him later, but 33% forward time apparently. Like, he's right on the brink. But I think it might have been more like your 40s, 50s, and then the last week or a couple of weeks playing a lot more mid has brought it down. So unless we see a shift back to more forward, he might just miss out. But if he got that was an absolute lock. As a mid, I don't like it as much. Just like George said, you never know with the role with Bevo if it can flip and change, and then you're sort of stuck with a mid that isn't top 8 and you're having to bail out of. So that scares me too much.
JD, who are your mid targets?
Oh, who are my mid targets? Yeah, it's a good. So I'm hoping to hold Cripps this week. So assuming I get to do that, then because like if I was trading him this week and I had the money, I think
can we talk to this week if it had to absolutely be? Who is it? And then in the future? Yeah.
So if it's this week, I think it's Steele or Bont are probably the two that I'd consider the most heavily if I had money to do it and I was set on a midfielder. In the coming weeks, I think Oliver is just durable. He's going to be ridiculously cheap for what he can put out. And then, Petrarca is probably going to be right behind him just because he has the upside and he's going to be even cheaper. So I think I might see myself loading up on the D's boys kind of back to back. But that's a caveat with I already have Took and McRae. If you didn't have McRae, then like bringing him in this week would make sense as well, although he's still quite expensive. Otherwise, if you didn't have Took, then like that's someone that you could look at a couple of weeks' time as well. I think for me, like all the options we've mentioned are really good. It's probably just where I can extract the most value out of, and that looks like Oliver and Petrarca at the moment. George, would you have something different?
No, I think it's Steele if you want one this week if you can afford it. Otherwise, wait for Oliver.
All right. Well, I generated much less discussion than what I expected. Vigorous agreement.
For the record, I would be Bont. If it was this week, it'd be Bont for me. Just
there's something about having Bont on your side that just makes you excited to watch footy.
Yeah, maybe it's because I owned him 2 years ago when he was okay, but not as good, and then didn't own him last year when he just absolutely just reamed me.
And it's also one of those weeks with them playing North where you could totally see, like, you bring him in, you put the captain on him, like he goes 180.
Did he score 70 last year against North when they won by 100 points?
Yeah, that might be the case, actually.
So it's weird.
All right, Crom. I think he scored 200 on Crom. That might have been pre-season, though.
2 years ago, George, we had him 199. Didn't get the 200.
Oh,
Come on, champion data.
Scaled him down.
Come on.
And then to close out one of the lines that has continued to be interesting this year, the forwards. So there's a couple of options that have been really surprising. I think somewhat similar story in both. So Cogs and Butters both started like bulls out of the gate, some really good scores over the first couple of weeks. And then Butters in the last 2 weeks, we've seen some pretty average scores. And in Cogs, it's really just the week we've just gone. He had a 64 and really no midfield time. Are these players that we need to be concerned about? And like, let's maybe break this up for a little bit. So Butters we picked as a keeper. Is he still going to be a keeper, or should you be looking to trade him? And then for Cogs, he looked like someone that was going to make us a lot of money and potentially be a keeper. Is he going to be a keeper, or is this someone that you should be planning to trade out in a few weeks when he maybe maxes out? Eno, why don't you start us off?
But Butters, look, it's annoying. Really, 2 poor scores in a row. But, cop that knock. Wines, obviously, there's issues with him, and he'll be out of the team for, you'd think, a little bit. So Butters, look, the game was over. He got some mid-time at the end of the game. You're not going to get a lot of Supercoach points when the game's pretty much dead for that. But that, you'd think Ken would be putting him more in there in the coming weeks. So we get a look at that. He did two great performances in the start of the season. So there's no reason why he can't get back to that. I think he's just, carrying something a little bit from that knock, or Port try to change their game plan, something like, I think he's going to head back into the midfield. Cogs is more interesting, where you just got to expect that from Cogs, a poor game like that. They're not always too far away with him. Just an off day with his disposal, which as I said, is not too surprising. So I still think he has the ability to be a keeper, but someone will have to just assess around the buys as to where he's at. And next week with the DPPs, who's coming in and does that, move Cogs down a few rungs to where he's probably not. That's probably where I sit with it. So Butters, with you, George, what do you think with him?
When a premium scores a 50 and you give me a microphone, it can be a little dangerous because I get overreactive.
What about if I give you a trade button?
Oh boy, watch out. Okay. There is cause for concern here. Not trading, no. However, his contested possessions in the first 2 games were 13 and 10. The last 2 games were 2 and 5. That is not what we expect from Zach Butters. And he probably got a few of those contested in the last game in junk time. For me, he's just failing the eye test miserably the past 2 weeks, but it's easy to forget how good he was in the preseason and how good he was in the first 2 weeks. So, Wines probably is out for not sure how long. Sounds like he's doing okay, so probably comes back soon. So, you think he gets more mid-time? I think it's more he's skirting packs a lot instead of doing in and under stuff, which would explain his contested possession count. So he's being less kamikaze and more like your receiver than your distributor, if that makes sense. So at the stoppage. So one to monitor, like at his price, it's like can't really trade him. But just one to monitor now, because he's never been a premium for a full season. Is the knock from Sam Powell-Pepper affecting him? Who knows? So just keep an eye on for now. I don't think he'll drop too much if he puts another bad score. So monitor, but a little concerning. Just strange. Not sure why he's playing the way he is. Not like he was in the first 2 games. So give him another go. And then on Cogs, who cares? Everyone has him. Just assess in a few weeks at the buys or whatever. I think it'll be fine.
It's just Cogs is Cogs. That's just the Cogs game.
Yeah.
They happen.
I think it's more our favorite coach, or JD's favorite coach, Leon Cameron.
Oh, bro. Don't get me started.
Yeah.
So what? Were his CBAs massively down this week?
Yes, they've been down the last 2 weeks. So let's go through CBAs on both. So Cogs was 59, 55 week 1 and 2. And then week 3, I think, was when they brought in the tagging combo. And Cogs looks to be the one that made way for it. So 12% CBAs in the 3rd, 21% CBAs in the 4th. And he's really the only one that's lost out. That's Kelly, Green, Taranto, all maybe have gone down a touch, but basically held at the same level. Tanner Bruin, who they want to get through there and has looked good, like he's maintained as well. It's really just been Cogs that has dropped off massively, and I think must be playing either more forward or wing time as a result. And then so I think we'll continue to see this as long as they continue to tag. It just seems like that's the one that's been dropped out. And then Butters is really interesting because he also was 58, 59, so around like 60% the first 2 weeks, and then copped the knock in round 3 and was down to 35%, and then in round 4, 44%. I think they need him in the midfield though. So I would liken this a little bit to what I was thinking with Gresham, with I thought that Saints were going to have to give him more CBAs because their midfield just looks so much better with that dynamic kind of X factor player in the mix. And if you look at the rest of Port's rotation at the moment, Boak, Drew, Wines, they are almost the same player to me. Boak was obviously a bit different in his prime, but he's slowed down a fair bit. And Butters is just the one that adds something different, adds some dynamic movement, some X factor. And when he was back in there in the fourth in the last game, he just looked better than any Port mid had for the whole game. So I'm hoping that he was just getting over that knock, and we'll see him getting more CBAs and potentially more contested in the next couple of weeks. But if that doesn't eventuate, then I think that's where we are at that, oh, wow, this is maybe a failed pick that we're going to need to sideways at some point.
Yeah. Respect to Boki, by the way. Just the man is the best first month Supercoach player of all time, I think.
He is. I mean, how old
he's
is
averaging
he now?
130 the first month every year. It's crazy.
He's 34 this year, I think. So I mean, yeah, he's doing good things.
Butters definitely offers much different things to the guys that are in there. So they got to do something, Port. You think that would be one of the things they could do?
Yes, yeah, for sure. Has not been a good start for them by any measure. I'm sure they didn't see themselves being bottom of the ladder in 0-4.
What a shame.
To start the year. Yeah.
George. About that.
He's devastated. If you're not watching on YouTube, I mean, there's basically tears coming out of the man's eyes. He's heartbroken. All right. So then targets in the forward line. It's really interesting because we started off with a lot of these picks that presented a lot of value, and now 4 weeks in, they've gone up a fair bit in cash. And George is smiling because there's a lot of his favorite men on this list. But who would you be looking to target? And let's start off by assuming that everyone has Dunkley and Butters. Not that Butters would be on the upgrade target list, but Dunkley probably isn't someone that we need to talk about. So some of the others listed down here would be George's proclaimed F1 Heaney. We've got English, who's looked very good as the number one ruck.
Website don't lie.
And then
nothing.
And then, well, you did proclaim it. It may be truthful in nature, but and then you're the Heaney Town crier. And then finally is a man that was on the avoid list at the start of the year, in Timmy Taranto, but has put together a really good string of games. So
probably throwing DeGoey as well.
Well, DeGoey, yeah, I mean, hasn't played this week, but sure, let's throw in DeGoey as well. So let's probably go through the same thing again. If you're looking to upgrade to someone now of these, who would it be? And then if you're looking to upgrade maybe in a couple of weeks' time or a few weeks' time, how would you kind of have them listed? Although I think it may be the same, but yeah, let's George, why don't we start with you for this one? Forwards, your wheelhouse.
So I think you want all three in your final team. Depending on how Will Brodie goes, I'm not sure we can fit all of them. So I would definitely want Tim English. He'll be first. Mostly, look, the DPP is quite nice with him. He's going up in price every week. His role's really good. Is it going to be maintained? For the most part, I think it will be this year. And when they used Steph in the preseason, they used him more forward, which probably didn't really work. So again, are Western Bulldogs a forward injury away from using English forward? I think it's always a possibility, but I think he's playing. There's a decent chance he's the All-Australian ruck at the moment. Like, why would you take him out? I guess if there's a possible injury, but still, I think they want him as the number one ruck. They're backing him in. That's what their plan was in the preseason. So I would go him first. He's still pretty cheap. So do you go Heaney or Taranto next? Or DeGoey? I have DeGoey fourth. I just think the play styles are different and the marks are down with him than from what they were last year. The chip game style they were playing with under Buckley and Harvey. I would say Isaac over Taranto. I think they both average similar for the rest of the year, though. Obviously, Heaney's slightly overperforming, just being a match winner.
Slightly, please.
What, you don't think he deserves his 125 average?
I don't think that persists. No. If you thought that persists, he'd be a must-have this week do anything. Even if Cripps played, you'd probably swap him
His
for Heaney.
fantasy scores like 110 average, something like that, around that mark. So it's still pretty good. So, yeah, he's playing. I'd probably go Isaac over Taranto. Taranto's still a massive butcher, but he's scoring well, 110 average. There were parts of last year where he had 110 averages, plus he has a coach called Leon Cameron who threw him like pure forward for like a month last year, and he averaged, I think he dropped like a 50 and a 70 in that range. Isaac's fully fit. The number one player in the league, might I add, according to the AFL player ratings. Thanks for pointing that out to me this week, Anno. So, yeah, I think I'd go English first and Isaac, then Taranto. I think you can't really go wrong with either of the three. And then fourth to Goey.
Anno, anything different, or have you got them lined up the same?
I actually think I've got them lined up the exact same. But yeah, just to make somewhat of a discussion, maybe you could argue English like number one, just because of the ruck cover, and depends to who you've got at R2, of course. So that could provide the positive there. But yeah, I think Heaney for me would still be number one if I had to choose and didn't have him. Yeah, been a fan of that man for so long. So you could just, when Cripps went down, not that I'm celebrating that, but when that, like, just thank God I went Heaney over him, because I just couldn't, like, that would just have compounded on that decision. Me just going, why the hell did I get Isaac? Drops to 130, and then that happened. So yeah, I'm thankful that I just always love watching him play, like since he came into the league, pretty much. So yeah, I'm sure George is loving looking at the 125 average, the 40% ownership. Like, it's like a dream.
I'd hate to look at my rank if Isaac wasn't playing the way he did, but you take it and run.
JD probably best to answer this anyway, because he only really has Dunkley. So since you don't have Isaac and English and Taranto, what would you rank them?
Yeah, I mean, English and Heaney have been killing me, especially Heaney. So yeah, 40% owned, 125 average, and not my team.
That's high.
Yeah,
40%.
Yeah,
in the game, and maybe it's higher.
40%. Brody's 40% and like 100 average as well. So like these two, not in my forward line, are like, it hurts, man. So for me, I was looking at English probably most heavily this week. Yeah, like the DPP is nice, but the role I think is probably the best of the lot, and probably just the one I believe in the most, especially with Heaney still playing probably more forward time than I would ideally like to see with him. I know he moves up, and George will like go to town on me if I say he's like playing 35% mid, 65% forward, which is what the CBA splits are, but aren't necessarily representative of where he's around the ground. But yeah, still like the splits is just like something. Oh, yes,
36% mid time on the DPP. He's going to get the DPP status, by the way, mate.
Stop
saying he's not playing mid. He is up around the ball. He is.
Didn't I say 35-65? What, I was off
yeah, but you said from CBAs. It's actually like around the ground too. But yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I actually thought it was more than that around the ground. That's even less. That's more worrying, if anything.
Yeah, I guess.
Because it's just like you're gonna see inconsistent scoring, but the fact he's been able to kick goals, and especially in clutch moments, is really.
Buddy's out as well for 3 weeks, I think. So
they'll just bring Logan in straight in.
I know they do, but they still like Heaney's still like, if they're not scoring goals, they're going, okay, Isaac, we need you there. Like Logan hasn't shown a heap at AFL level. I know he's not direct replacement, but yes, he's not Buddy. Yeah. And he won't get like, double team like Buddy. So
yeah, and like the really interesting thing as well is Swan's game plan does change when there's no Buddy, because when there's Buddy, literally the game plan is kick it to Buddy. That's it. Like he's so heavily targeted, so it does change when he's not on the side, even if they do replace him. I'm not saying they'll like replace Heaney in Buddy's spot, but yeah. So anyway, it'd still be English 1. Heaney 2, just because he's better value than Taranto, and then Taranto then Tagoe. But yeah, I think the only nice thing about Tagoe is that he has got the midfield role, and he's 470k. So if you were looking for a cheap option for whatever reason this week, then like I don't think it's a terrible pick if you couldn't get to the others.
Yep.
And then all right, so let's go on to rookies then, which are going to be make or break for our teams. George, you want to go back to forwards, don't you?
I was just going to say
about Tagoe, and you're like, what? No.
Tagoe's okay. I don't think he's ahead of the other guys. So I just want to say, you said the Sydney game plan is give it to Buddy. It's give it to Heaney. I'm not sure you've been watching.
I think Papley's 1 week away as well, so that should help them.
definitely should help him. And they've still got a pretty soft fixture as well. So West Coast this week, although West Coast defense has been good.
Hawks,
it's just the rest of the team has it, and then the Hawks the week after. So there are some nice plus matchups for Heaney. But we've talked about the Dogs fixture as well. So lots of good plus matchups for English as well.
Just quickly on English, I don't think he was that impressive on the weekend, and he still had 20 touches, kicked a goal, and scored in the 90s. So I think that's the thing. He's still got some, I think at worst he goes 100. At worst.
I mean, against the Swans, he was getting beaten by Hickey as well, and he still went 150 because Hickey went down. But
I have him Heaney in English in the 110, 115 range at the moment.
Yep.
So both present value at their current price then. All right, so let's go to rookies then. I guess two things to consider. One, are there any options for us to be downgrading to this week and who we should offload? We'll kind of maybe bundle these up a little bit. And then the second part of the conversation is really around, we've got to keep an eye on next week, which is traditionally when we'd start to go one up, one down. Are there any first game rookies that we should be keeping our eye on? George, let's start with you. Downgrade options this week. Who's top of the list?
Nathan O'Driscoll, or Drizzy, like Drake. So he's gone up in price a bit. I love the guy in the preseason. He was playing so well. You can see he plays with his heart on his sleeve. He runs really hard. So he's kicking goals.
He plays with tape on his sleeve. I don't know what you've been watching. that man's taped.
Yeah, the shoulder and everything.
He only played the KO game, so you're the only one that watched that anyway. So thank God you did, though, because you've been singing his praises ever since that game.
I don't understand. I was shocked that they didn't play Erasmus and O'Driscoll round one. So look, O'Driscoll, I feel okay fielding him. I think it's not too sure what you're going to get. I mean, he's not going to kick 2 goals and play like that every game, but he's had a really big summer. He was dogged by injuries last year. So 160K, as much as I hate paying that for downgrade, I think he's going to be a good one. His DPP is quite nice as well. He's swinging him up and down with Dacos. And then, if he's in your midfield, then it just helps with upgrades. I'm not sure we get many defender downgrades coming up. So if he's in your midfield, you just swing him up, get rid of McCartan that way. So I think he'll be useful. So I would be grabbing O'Driscoll. I think he can make 180K over time.
From here?
Scored 100. Yep. Yeah, I think so. He's good. So grab O'Driscoll. Who else we got? Erasmus. This is tough because they have a few mids coming back. They have Sarong and Tucker coming back. So I'm not sure Erasmus stays in the team, but I thought he was good. I think he's building. Been really good in the waffle. And then, by the way, it's 160 average in Colts under 18s waffle Colts. The NAB League equivalent in WA. The other one is, interestingly, Hugh Dixon's come into calculations now. So obviously,
say that. Yeah,
this is interesting because Nick Nat has gone down, and he's down for 2 months?
A while.
Or something? Yeah. So you would think he plays with Bailey J. Williams together, and Dixon is, how much is he?
He's the same. It's the same as Drizzy, pretty much. So same break even, same price. So it's a weird one.
Fortunately, I have him.
Yes, but
which was kind of fortunate. I wasn't kind of expecting this output, but he was a really good kicking contested marks all around the ground. I think he won them the game, just about, against Collingwood. So you elaborate, JD.
Oh, sorry. Dixon's 48.7% owned, so he is pretty heavily owned. But for those that don't own him, someone you'd get on this week, would you prioritize him over Noddy or Drizzy or O'Driscoll?
I think his job security is slightly better now. I still think they got to play Driscoll. I think he's bought himself a few weeks. Probably not. I think just the forward line is kind of packed with good rookies and good mid prices and good premiums, whereas defender, not so much. So I probably grabbed O'Driscoll. What are you thinking, Anno?
O'Driscoll for me over Dixon. But if you had neither, would you consider getting both? Is the question. I think the harder question, if you decide you're getting O'Driscoll and Dixon, whatever, the harder question is who's going out. That's the hard part, which I think we need to get into because it was an issue last week with Nick Martin. I think people might have even flicked Dixon and Hayes and those sorts of guys for Martin, and geez, you'd hate if you flick Dixon and now he's got this job security out of nowhere. That'd be really annoying. So that's more the question, boys, is who's going out? If you've got
Dylan
all the
Stephens.
rookies. Yeah. Well, you've already got rid of him.
Didn't really want to either.
Yeah.
Basically, with Stephens, I was reading the Big Footy VFL thread, so I had about up until half time to see how he's going before being able to flick him to Bruce. And there was a bit of whinging over his performance. So I just thought, well, probably not going to come back into the team. Need to get Bruce. Had Hayes at R2, so it could have been sub. So just made the move. So I think probably you're okay to move on Stephens. Probably come back and make a bit more money at some point, but when, who knows? So probably not this week. It's tough. I think the Hawks boys were really disappointing. McDonald cut some slack because his role was far worse than Ward, but Ward has been like, we've been patient and it's just not happening. He played he played like half of the second quarter last week to get a good score, and this week he's had like 30-something. Even worse was his fantasy score, like 25 or something. So I've lost patience with Ward, and I'd still hold him if it wasn't for O'Driscoll, but he's gone for O'Driscoll for me this week. So I think Ward. But the annoying thing is we kind of know he's capable, but someone's got to go. And unfortunately, I think it's Ward.
Ward or McDonald. I think it's McDonald for me. Still, I know we keep trusting in Ward every week and him not repaying us, but I really can't see McDonald doing much. And maybe even McDonald's dropped, and it makes it a bit easier.
Just quickly, you got to remember that they lost by like 80 points.
Yeah, and he's a forward, and he does get the forward status, which maybe helps for other stuff. So, it's tough. I think I'm holding Stephens for one more because he's the direct swap to Bruce for me the week after. So I'll just leave him there and then decide on one of the Hawks boys.
Help us out, JD.
Yeah. So I think if you're planning on trading Stephens anyway for Bruce, then I would
do it now.
Trade him now and hold the Hawks boys, just because the Hawks boys still have like mid-20s break evens, and so like they'll make a little bit more money, and you can just trade out whichever one's still disappointing you more next week, which might equally be both. I guess the downside with that strategy is if Stephens comes back the week after for whatever reason, he looks the most capable of the three to make more money.
That's kind of my thinking, because like an injury or two, I'm not wishing for that stuff, but that's all he probably needs, which obviously to the right position or the right areas of the ground. But I just realized they play Friday, Easter Monday for the Hawks boys. We're probably not going to know if like McDonald's on the team, stuff like that. Freaking AFL, man. Scheduling.
Yeah.
Like that won't be out till Saturday night, right? The Easter Monday teams, I think.
Yeah.
Man. That's tough. Yeah, I get what you mean though. Holding the Hawks boys, getting one more look makes sense.
Yeah, and well, so I guess
because you're not getting a look at Stephens most likely. So
wait, so when does Bruce play next week? Oh, he plays Friday night.
Yeah.
Sorry, the week after.
Yeah.
When he's back.
Yeah. It's Friday night.
Okay, no rider as well, which is kind of nice.
Have to see what happens there.
Yeah. And then Sydney play the Hawks as well on Monday, sorry. 2 Monday games.
Oh, yeah, they do. That's Anzac Day. Oh, man.
So you can make that decision. Well, you can't make that decision late because you're going to have to trade blindly into Bruce.
I'd get rid of Stephens. I think McDonald and Ward will play. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they can still make their break evens are still pretty low. Like in the 20s.
It just, I have the nightmare in my mind of trading Stephens and then for whatever reason a Cunningham or it's one of those guys either doesn't perform or gets injured. Campbell looked really good, didn't he?
Yeah, he did, which is like
good.
Yeah. So that's a lot of the Swans underperformed. So I was thinking like there's maybe a chance Stephens comes back in this week, but then
it wasn't the right guys.
yeah, exactly. That's the problem. And McElhenney was really good as well.
Oh, he was insane. Yeah. Yeah, maybe it is Stephens the one to go for Driz.
Oh, this is hard because I'm in the same boat. Like currently, I've got Ward out just because
Yeah, I'm glad I looked at that because I remembered Stewart was playing Easter Monday, and it just hit me that the Hawks boys do as well. So
yeah, because the same boat as well. Like I've got to trade someone to Bruce next week. I guess the only thing is if one of your rookies goes down with an injury or gets omitted or whatever it is for any other reason, then I'd probably still rather hold Stevens long term than Ward, which is why I'm leaning more towards trading Ward out this week.
Yep.
Because there's a chance that I'd have to hold one of them next week anyway, in which case I'd rather hold Stevens.
If Jack Hayes, sorry, cut you off. If Jack Hayes isn't named with Ryder out and they use Campbell, who's on their list, would you get rid of Hayes then?
Yeah, probably. That would be.
There's no way they do that.
But I don't think that happens. Surely, yeah.
Okay,
surely Tommy Campbell. Forgot he was
just floating it. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, yeah. If that definitely George, then I think I would. Yeah, because that's not a good sign at all. Yeah, hurts, right. JD. I'd love to know if McDonald was dropped because then he'd be the one to go, but we may not know.
All right. So final verdict on who to offload. It sounds like, George, you have Stevens 1. Was it Ward 2 and then McDonald 3?
Yeah, I think Ward is like 30k more than 40k more than McDonald. Yeah.
And then Hinge you'd keep?
Yeah, for sure. Hinge. Keep Hinge.
Yep. And then Eno.
I get your points, boys, because you get more money from those two boys, but I still think they have, albeit a long shot, they still have more scope than McDonald to make more cash. I know McDonald doesn't have to do as much, but look, I didn't see the game, so I don't know too much. And yes, they got spanked, so it makes a bit of sense why he did poorly. But I'd be okay. I just have a nightmare of those two others who are very capable of scoring well. So I'd say McDonald first for me.
I honestly feel like Ward. So go on.
Oh, so it's just the other thing with McDonald, which I don't know if you mentioned already because I was like zoned out looking at different things. But McDonald gets forward status, right, with the DPPs. Yeah. So it's a little bit handier to keep of them just because you for free get to open that swing up from next week.
Yeah.
You swing with Martin.
Could get a Martin, yeah.
Yep.
Oh, it's actually not easy.
Yeah, so I don't know. I'm still going back and forth, but I currently, I guess, I'd have it Ward over Stevens over McDonald and no trade on Hinge.
Yeah.
And then actually, there's one other option that we haven't listed at all because it's someone that we didn't recommend a lot and haven't talked about much, but it's Bowie. Yeah. So someone that people are struggling with this week. So I guess like you've got two options here quickly, and I'm just forcing this in. I'm sure it should have been part of another segment. Either to upgrade him to a defender, which, the conversation we went over who to upgrade to, I think that serves you well. Otherwise, if you didn't have anything else to do this week, would you look just to trade him down to like an O'Driscoll and then that be your only trade this week? So he obviously scored pretty poorly last week and there's still his cash generation. He's got an 82 break even now. Is it someone that you have to trade? And if so, would you be comfortable just doing a downgrade to an O'Driscoll and that be your only trade for the week?
Well, yeah, help me out, George, because I've obviously got the other three we just spoke about, but I've also got Bowie. So would you just do Bowie down and then keep the others?
Have you been sitting on him, Enno, this whole time and haven't mentioned him?
I completely forgot about him, just like he forgot about playing on the weekend. Nah, yeah, to help me out, like I'm okay with holding him one more week in my mind because look, 80 break even is not great, but what worst case he scores another 50 or whatever and he drops 20k. Yeah, it hurts, but maybe he gets back to what he was doing the weeks before that.
His break even's 80. I think he was probably more likely a victim of Port's game style, where it's kind of the Tolls grabbing the ball when they were kicking it long. Whereas, Port just hogged the ball down back too long. Like, I think they had way more points than Melbourne somehow. So I think you can hold if you want. I just think his break probably not going to make too much more money. If he's your gateway to, I know you go down O'Driscoll, that's what, 200k?
Yeah, I have 200 in the bank.
You put that on, what do you even put that on? If you
can
get like it. The thing is, so I follow Moreau's Magic's work a lot, like the greatest fantasy player ever, easily. He doesn't, I think he's more fantasy than Supercoach, but he always says he doesn't like to, well, from memory, he doesn't like to hold money in the bank. He likes to, the game is about points, invest that money and get points somewhere. So if you can find somewhere to use it, I probably would. But if you're not going to a premium, then I guess what's the point? So it's a bit of a tough one. Could you even go Cherry to English?
I
feel like Cherry's got more money because here's the thing: English has gone and go up more money too. So I think Cherry's probably worth holding though. So I would try and invest that now somewhere.
Would you look at trading Rao?
Oh,
if that gets you Steele, yeah. Yeah, I would. Rao's only... Well, I think the gap between Rao and Steele in price can still be mitigated a bit. But you get points this week, right? Because you would expect Steele to outscore Rao. So, interesting discussion.
I can do it.
And this is an interesting thing. This is what I was thinking before. So obviously we're going to hold Butters, but everyone basically has Butters. Most people, I don't know, 90% of the top 5,000, which I'm not in, or any of us at the moment, but hopefully we get there. Like it could be a pod move to move him on, and then everyone suffers if he goes bad against the price. Now, I still think the play with Butters is hold, but it's like Rao. Everyone still has Rao.
I think that makes more sense with Rao in my.
He goes bad. Look, this is just like you can't predict this stuff, but you know he continues to get sub 20 disposals. Still has a big game. Bang, you get points on the competition.
God Almighty, it looks so good.
I still would like to hold Rao for a few more weeks.
So would I.
Because we know he's got the ceiling. It's just he's been every week getting worse and worse and worse.
It's also a little bit of a rob Peter to pay Paul situation in the sense that he could be a lot of people's first upgrades next week or the week after if he doesn't do well. So if you move ahead of the competition, he performs poorly, then like fair play and it might give you an advantage. But it could also mean like you just don't have someone to upgrade with next week, and then it kind of doesn't work out that well. I don't know.
I'd invest it somewhere. Find a way.
Yeah. I'd say like the one big difference to fantasy as well is that it's because you've got the use it or lose it trades. Always investing the money back in makes sense. Opportunity cost. But for Supercoach, you have to use a trade maybe suboptimally, and that does have a bigger cost than you get in fantasy, which is like the only risk with that.
Yeah.
All right. I think a good conversation. I'm not sure we've actually solved or answered that question for many people, but at least given them a few ideas to think about with some of the pros and cons of each. I see here on the run sheet Sam Hayes to debut. George, I think this is one you've been excited about. Do you want to talk to us a little bit about Sam Hayes and why we should have him on the watch list this weekend?
I'm not excited. I don't care about that club, but I got too many ruckmen at the moment, so. I think Lysak dislocated his shoulder. He's listed as a test, but you would think dislocated shoulder probably misses a few weeks. So I guess wait for the injury report. Maybe he plays. I feel like he's been overdue for a debut. I know he lost in the SNFL to the Crows backup ruckman, who's actually pretty good.
That's Strawn.
Yes. I actually think he's off chance to take Rob's spot in the next few weeks, but that's another story. I'm not sure Hayes has been super impressive, but I think he deserves a chance at AFL level. So just one to monitor. If he wouldn't go early on him, just if Lyset's out for a while, I think there's a chance for him to debut, and we'll see how that goes. So just thought I'd mention that. Maybe Lyset's out for a bit and just monitor.
Yeah, we haven't seen anything official, but the one report I've looked at said that he's a test, but I don't know where the source for that has come from. So yeah, keep an eye and monitor. All right, so to wrap it up this week, we've got two last things to discuss. I think Eno firstly going to take us through the potential DPP moves we should be looking at this week. And this has come courtesy of BJ, who is at BJT_SC98 on Twitter. So give him a follow. Got the inside word on some of the time on, or like the position on ground. I don't know what the name for it is, but effectively who's in line to get DPP and who isn't. So Eno, why don't you give us a preview on what we can look forward to over the next week?
So, look, obviously we've been trying to learn what the hell the rules are with fantasy. Is it the same? Is it different? How many games you got to play? I still don't think I know the answer to that, but I think it's 4 out of 5.
Yeah.
But regardless of that, we know at least it's 35% in another position. You have to only have one position as well. If you already got 2, you've got 2, and that's it. You can't lose it. You can't gain. So guys he's got a whole list here, and guys that are sort of over the 35% after 4 rounds. Andrew Brayshaw, he's going to get defender status. Not really relevant for Supercoach.
Angus.
Might be Angus. Sorry,
Yeah, Angus. Yeah.
Might be for fantasy, but you probably have to bring him in a couple of weeks ago anyway. Hoff is a decent one. If you got him in his on your mid bench, that's pretty handy. He's going to get defender status, so that's good to open up some swings. We spoke about McDonald. He's going to get forward. Luke McDonald's going to get defender. I don't think many people got him in. Then Cherry's going to get ruck, as we know, which people are holding out for to swing him there. Butters is pretty. Oh yeah, he's absolutely certain to get midfield status, which again doesn't really matter because he's a forward, but that could be handy at some stage. Ellis, not really relevant. Nick Dacos, that's the big one. So it looks like he's pretty much guaranteed to get defender status. You'd have to, you have to play 100% midfield to even lose that. But
I think even with 100% midfield, just
can't possibly do it.
Yeah. I think like you'd take 20% off his defender, and he'd still be 38.9%. So I think he's locked in for defender status.
Thank God for that. Pendles is another one, which some people are interested in. I'm not myself, but he has looked good to start the season. Just age and injuries put me off that pick. Lib is a big one. He has been playing pretty much, mostly forward. Bit of stints in the midfield, but I think only had one or two full games in the midfield. The rest have been mostly forward, and he's averaging quite well. So he's one to look at. It's just another dog's mid that you don't know what the hell's going on.
I think he's the type of one where if dogs had midfield injuries and then moved Libba back onto the ball more, he could be an option at the back end of the year, but not a real option in the short term.
No, not at all.
No, George is completely against it. James Harms, that's a no from me. Toddy Goldstein, he's going to get the forward status, but that is irrelevant as well. Nick Martin, that's handy. He should get mid status. He's close, but he's playing hopefully some mostly wing this week, not all half forward, so he keeps that. Darcy Fort's going to get ruck status or forward, sorry, so that's not really relevant anyway. Luke Parker's a weird one. He's going to get forward status, it looks like, but he's really putting in some stinkers lately. He had the massive round 1, but dropped to 40 last week, so that's a no for now, but I don't really know what's going on there. You boys watched the Swans game much? Did he just parked himself in the square the whole game? So,
I was looking at the CBAs the other day, and they've had games where they put, I think last week was one where they had him at CBAs a ton. So 82% last week. And then the other weeks it's been 50, 45, and 38%. So yeah, they've moved him around a bit. Same with Kennedy, trying to figure out how they get the youth into the midfield, but also continue to find spots for some of the old heads. So yeah, more forward time for him this year, and he's been pretty dangerous around goals.
Yeah, so that's too scary to bring in yet. Maybe something changes. He goes to full-time mid later in the year. Newcomb's going to get it. That doesn't really do anything for us either. Heaney's just on the brink of getting mid status, which again, like Butters, doesn't do too much, but might just help to cover someone some week for you.
I think there's a pretty big risk that he doesn't get it this week, just with the Buddy injury and still no Papley back. There's a chance that he does play more forward. So
yeah, sitting at 36%, so he probably does lose it. You're right.
Just can't put
then
him
there's the guys
one in a few weeks.
What is he if he was a mid? He'd be like,
nah, he's like 530k at the moment.
No, like ranked. He'd probably be top 5 average.
He's at 8th in the SC, 7th or 8th at the moment.
Anyway, then there's the guys. So they're the guys that are in the bracket at the moment. Then there's the guys that are just out. So Jackson Mead, that's one that probably most of us have missed, but he could turn into a good rookie. He's going to get mid status. Oh, no. Yeah, he is already mid. So, no, he's just outside forward. So, yeah, I don't think many people own him, but he could turn out to be a good rookie. Baz is just close. Baz Lanke, 32%. So, I think he's going to keep dropping because he's playing in a lot of mid. So, something would have to change there this week to get him across the line. Rowan, he was close, but Ryder suspended and Jack Hayes coming in. I mean, they still split. What was the split when they played that other game? It was like 50-50.
Yeah, they got to like 50-51 week for CBA.
So, maybe he gets across the line there. That would be interesting, but he hasn't set the world on fire too much, and then Ryder will come back at some stage, so it would be a bit sketchy. There's not too many other guys I can see here. Mitch Hinge has lost it or lost his chance at it, playing a lot more defense. So he was initially a shot, but that's gone. Gawn's interestingly at the 28% forward. So if he has a forward week this week, that would be quite funny. If Luke Jackson got a big stint in the ruck this week and he got it. And then another big one down here is, other than Lipinski, who George was really hoping for, but with De Goey and Adams out, that was killed, unfortunately. But Horne-Francis, he won't be getting forward status, it seems. Too many mid-injuries or outs in the mids, and he's looked really impressive in there. So he doesn't look to be getting forward status, which is a little bit disappointing because that would have been handy. Although we're pretty good for forwards down there with mid prices and stuff. So any other on the list, boys, or ones we've missed or ones we're interested in?
Yeah, I mean, people talk about Bont getting DPP, which is ridiculous. He's 10% off. Caldwell was mid-priced. It looked like he could have got some more time, especially with Essendon's midfield being back, but he's going to miss as well. But yeah, I think like the most interesting ones. There's not really too many interesting ones to talk about. So a lot of the rookies that are getting it is great. It's going to be handy. Like Cherry getting it's going to be handy. I think the only player that potentially comes relevant that doesn't currently have it is Pendlebury. But we've already talked about a bunch of other options that are more interesting, like Doherty, Sinclair, Hall, whatever it may be. So hard to see him being relevant, especially given his age.
Fair enough. I don't think George was really interested in any of them other than the
maybe Bez
anyway.
If he gets it. Bez is like 32, was it?
I think he's a lock.
32.8%. Yeah, he becomes like F1. Oh, move aside Heaney.
Must have
a new man in town. Must have alert.
I'm a little bit more interested in Libba than George maybe, but yeah, like JD said, something would maybe have to go right. Either a mid-injury or it's clear that he's in the mids again, like he was last year, because he was first picked in the midfield last year for them. He was awesome. So that seems to have changed.
The rumor was that he had COVID or something, which is why he started out slowly. So he just had just the 4% CBAs round one, and then he's kind of gone around 30% the last three. But it looks like he's the clear fourth preference behind McRae, Bont, Baz, and Dunkley. So yeah, I think one of those would have to get injured ahead, and him to be the one that gets moved up for him to be someone that we get excited about.
Yep. And another thing, though, there was guys injured last year, wasn't there? That's probably why he was in there too as well. Dunks was out for a long time. Was Treloar out for a bit? Can't remember. But he did average 104 last year, George. So it was.
Oh, did he?
Okay.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah.
It's interesting because like the forward line's so strong this year. I think if we got Libba last year, we'd be all over it.
That's another good point. Yeah, it looks a lot better this year.
All right, and then to close us out this week, the world's easiest vice-captain decision. George, would you like to run us through that?
We should just sign off, boys.
You're going to make me mention Isaac again against West Coast.
Oh, please.
No, okay. VC, Neil, C, McRae, agree?
Agree.
Yep. Very easy.
So, yeah, like I guess, so for us, we don't have Steele. He's somewhat interesting against Gold Coast, although Gold Coast seem to have been holding up okay against mids. And really, there's nothing else that looks interesting. The Melbourne boys, you kind of can't go because they're up against GWS. Gawn is a somewhat interesting captain option if for whatever reason you don't have McRae. I don't know who would do such a ridiculous thing as to not start McRae, but if you're in that camp, then maybe that's something you could look at. Otherwise, maybe Brayshaw against Essendon if for whatever reason you had Brayshaw.
Yeah, I like that one. McGrath maybe tags though.
Like, yeah, potentially because McGrath's been doing more run with, and it seems like Brayshaw is like similar body type. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, so I still think Neil into McRae is probably the safest. But if we're going to draw out this segment any longer, then maybe those are some of the others you could consider.
Yeah, I like to be really safe with the C's just for what it's worth. Like, it might sound, like a prick coming from a non-Crips owner, but Crips, like last week, it's just a guy I just don't have enough trust in captaining, and I think Brayshaw's one of them. Tag could come out of nowhere and really just piss you off. So
he's a perfect vice captain candidate just because of the variance. Yeah. So you're going to get a 190 and you take it, or you get a 90 and you pass on it. And it's really easy decisions like that.
Just like Gawn. I think Gawn's that too this year. he's going to have his big ones, going to have his small ones. He's good for VC, but McRae and all those types, they're your captains.
And then, actually, there is one final thing. So got to keep myself honest on the Rao versus Lipinski versus Shield. So I could have let that go, but so Lipinski took the win this week in a very disappointing round. So it's funny,
they're in sync.
So like Shield was 68, Rao was 65, and what was Lip 76?
Scaled down again 7 points. It's 79. It was on 86, but gave away a 3 at the death. It's like, not again.
Yeah, so Lip's averaging like
Who's counting though?
100.5, and Rao's averaging 99 point something. I think it might be 99 even. So still very close on that one. But yes, for the low listeners on the Rao versus Lip update. And then Shield's lagging about 10 points behind them, which is what the original bet was, just quietly. But that'll be all from us this week. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you don't follow us on already, you can find us on YouTube and on Twitter. So on Twitter, it's at Fantasy Take TV.
Yep.
On YouTube, well, you're probably already watching this there, but yeah, through George's channel on YouTube. Is it still called George Supercoach? Or have you rebranded?
No.
He's starting to mention it in the intro now.
Yeah, the intro.
Yeah.
George from Fantasy Take TV this week. Yeah, I did notice that.
Spotify as well, and George did manage to figure out Apple this week, which was round of applause, George.
Yeah.
Well done.
So Fantasy Take
2
TV
years.
on all formats.
What was that?
Is it just Fantasy Take TV on all formats? I should know this, shouldn't I?
I mean, it should be, unless George has
Facebook
done something.
No Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and then Jackson Davey, and George on YouTube.
But yeah, thank you all for listening, and we'll catch you next week.